Good evening all, and welcome to tonight's topic on what it takes to be found on Google. I'll just try my screen sharing. I was just having a little bit of trouble doing that. It's just me and share. Hopefully, if you had a long weekend, you had a really good one. I certainly did. I did absolutely no work whatsoever, which I was very proud of. It's usually very unusual for me to do that. All right, we should have that on screen now. Good evening. We've got a really big turnout tonight, 22 so far. I'm expecting a few more people to drop in. I think we had over 50 booked in. So there's a lot of people who want to know what it takes to be found on Google. So let's get underway. What we're going to look at tonight is how Google works, a little bit about how the ranking works in Google, what you'll need to do to get your ranking going a bit better, and improving your rank as well. So we're going to take a look at those things you need to do up front when you've got a new website, but if you've got an existing one as well, hopefully you're going to find a little bit in there that's suitable to your circumstances as well. This is very general information. This is not from Google themselves, although I do have a relationship with Google. This is not their training because Google does not provide any sort of advice when it comes to SEO, just on the use of their products. My name is Dante St James. I am Google Ads certified and Google Analytics certified, so I've got a fair bit of Google under my belt. I work with the Chartered Institute of Marketing, where I did a whole lot of study over about 7 years. I'm now a Google Digital Springboard trainer. I also work with Facebook as a trainer, a digital marketing associate, and a marketing science professional. And I'm currently a certified practicing marketer with the Australian Marketing Institute. I collect badges because I have no life. Oh my God. So how does Google work? Well, Google works across three little main areas. First of all, there's what they call crawling, the act of their little spider bots going all over the internet and collecting information about yours and everybody else's websites out there. Then we look at the power of indexing. So that's where they take all that information they're gathering and put it into a format that makes sense, that it makes sense for searchers when they're searching for you, but also makes sense for people in their everyday situations getting the right kind of result that they want to get. And then there's the serving and the ranking, which is the actual part that's to do with the serving of those results and getting those results in so that they make sense to everybody who's searching, but particularly to individuals, because when it comes to the way things are served on Google, it's always served to be very, very specific to the kind of person. Sorry, I'm just having a screen problem. The very person that's doing the searching, and we'll have a little bit more of that a little bit later on. Let me just swap this out. Now let's look at the crawling part. I don't even know if I'm sharing the right screen right now. Sorry, I've just had my screens just all go a bit nuts on me. This happened last week. What's going on? There you get to see my face again. Has anyone else got the touch-up setting at their on their Zoom at all? I've got this touch-up setting which makes me look like a China doll. It's quite disturbing, to be honest. Hey, come on. I was going to have to redo my screens all over. You click one button and everything goes wrong. All right. I won't be a moment. Sorry about this. All right, nearly there. Let's share that screen again. Share desktop 1. And we're looking better. All right, back to where we were. Thank you for your patience there. I just hit one button and it made everything go where it shouldn't go. Okay, so the indexing part is where Google actually goes through and looks at all the sites and looks for such things as, what the site's about. What's the main area of concern of that website? It looks at what the images are that are there and also what videos are there. And this is where it just pulls its booyah, yeah, kind of algorithm to say, not only going to index what is written on your website, but it's also going to index what videos and what images are on your website as well. Now, that won't include your YouTube videos if you're embedding them on a website. That is just the videos that you've natively put in there. So that's a very good value to be able to do that. But as well, if you're putting videos on YouTube, they are getting indexed anyway under your brand. So you don't necessarily have to worry too much about the point that your videos be on YouTube or on some other mechanism or even on your own website, because serving video is actually really difficult to do. Going back to the previous bit, which is all about crawling, they're all about Google's little spiders crawling around the web looking at new content, but not just new stuff as well. It's also the updated content, the stuff that's on existing websites and is making a bit of a difference about the new stuff on your page. So you're making sure that there's fresh content that it's picking up. And it looks at also the submissions of the owners of the website. So when you're using your sitemap and you're submitting it through something called the Google Search Console, which is your communication with Google, it's where its algorithm actually gives you feedback about your website. And it's an absolutely vital part of what you do for the optimization of your website for Google. And then the serving part is where, say I type in a query, Google then goes and does a match, a bit of a match job. It's kind of like speed dating. It'll look at all these options that are out there and say, okay, this is what you want. Here's the most relevant answer that we think it's going to be in there. And I've ranked it in order of the things I think are the most relevant to you right now at this moment in time. And that's where you get that really good secret sauce, awesome search result that you usually get out of Google, but you don't get out of some other ones such as DuckDuckGo or Bing. They just don't quite have the same level of experience and all that. Carol's just telling me they can't see the slides, so it looks like the sharing is failing again. Let me try that again. Carol, can you just tell me if you still cannot see those slides right now? And I'll work to share the screen yet again. Seems to have dropped off again. Okay, cool. You're meant to be able to see these. So the slides will also be provided in the Business Station recording, which will be in about 48 hours. I'll have that up and running in the Business Station YouTube page. All right, Carol, can you tell me if you can now see that? Fantastic. Now it'll be even better when I present it full screen. Look at that. Much better. I'm a professional. Trust me, I do this every day. You'd think I'd be a professional at this by now. So what makes one search result more relevant than another search result? Well, it's all about the intent of the searcher. That intent is measured in terms of what Google thinks that person really wants, where they normally search, and what they've just been doing. And are they displaying what they can measure as a certain behavior? And this is the #1 thing in Google search these days. Above keywords, above the name of the domain you're choosing, above the web host you choose, this intent of the searcher is the best, most relevant kind of search result you want, because it is all about you as an individual. That's the reason why I could search for the same thing as you exactly, and even be in the same building, and we may get completely different search results, simply because our intent for finding those search results at the time might be a little bit different. I may be in the middle of doing shopping and I'm buying other things online, and Google, through analytics code inserted into those sites, can be feeding back more detail about the fact that right now this guy for the last 15 minutes has been doing a lot of online shopping or surfing through a lot of these. So chances are that when he puts in a query to Google and he says, yep, I want to find out about standard t-shirt sizes in the US, that he's probably doing it within the context of wanting to buy t-shirts maybe from the US and wanting to see, you know, how differences in t-shirt size are to the US to, say, Australia, or from China to Australia. That thing of how they normally search, how someone like you would normally search, tells a lot of difference about the kind of results you want. Because I may be looking for restaurants that serve Chinese cuisine, and you may be searching for restaurants that want Chinese cuisine. And it knows that I really, really value feedback from things like TripAdvisor, because I do a lot of interstate traveling. So I want to check out the reviews from other interstate travelers on TripAdvisor on what kind of Chinese food is great, but you may never look at TripAdvisor. You may have never have ever looked at it. So to throw you up TripAdvisor reviews and TripAdvisor results will be irrelevant to you, but it's highly relevant to me. So that's how the intent can be very, very different based upon how you normally search, the things you normally do. Are you displaying that kind of behavior, such as shopping or searching for things for a big night out or making bookings for a holiday? And that whole thing of what do you really want? Because quite often, if anyone's worked in customer service or in a call center or in a shop, you'll know exactly what I'm saying when customers and clients say what they want, but it's not actually what they really want. So it's a very, very, very big thing when it comes to providing an answer to a question, is that humans have this incredible ability to ask for things that are nothing like what they really are asking for. Next is the quality of your content. And this is where we ask that question. Does this content actually answer the question that someone's giving? Does it usually provide a good answer when other people are asking this question? Is it on a site that consistently has a whole lot of good info? Oh yeah, that the O's on my glasses are to do my ring light that lights me up. I'm in a bit of a dark patch in the room, so thank you for Mandy for spotting that. It's not what I do for Zoom advertising, but it's just something that shows. Let's see my line up. There you go. I can line it up. It's just my ring light. I'm about to get some more gentle lighting that's going to help that out a bit more. Sorry if it's a little bit distracting. Is this a site with a consistently good set of info, not for just this question, for other questions that are kind of related to it as well? And do other people agree that this site gives really good information? Now, this is a process that Google and other search engines go through within a tenth of a second every time you put in a search query. It's working its little butt off just to try and get you the most relevant answer every time. So you can imagine all the things you need to do when it comes to bundling this together to do something to make you go better. The relevance of the content is a massive one. We talked about that as one of our very, very early points tonight. Is the content on the page actually relevant to what someone's asking? Because I'm asking to see the best Chinese meal in town in Merredin in WA. If I see a result come up for the best Chinese in town in Darwin in the Northern Territory, that's a complete mismatch. It's utterly irrelevant and I'm not getting a good experience. And that's what Google's all about, is providing the most relevant and helpful experience of its search engine it possibly can. Are the words on the page a match for what I'm looking for? Something really, really simple. And that's what is referred to often as keywords. So that's where it is. It's the keywords. If you've ever heard that term before, it's all about the words on your page matching the kind of things that people are searching for. And does previous interaction indicate that it's relevant? So the behavior of people when they've landed on this page asking that same question and asking that same kind of stuff, when they've come to this page, has their interactions with the site and their behavior on the site given an indication, a signal back to Google that this stuff is relevant. The stuff on this page is relevant for this kind of question, because if it is, it can deliver a whole lot more of them. And then finally, is this site that provides more information than just on this page, that goes beyond just the query? So for instance, if I wanted to go in that rabbit hole that we all get onto when we're online, we used to call it into a surf hole when it was in the 90s. You just sort of look for one thing and next thing you'd be talking about how the biggest hole in the world is in Russia, and the people often think that it's haunted with demons, and what you were actually searching for was a Chinese restaurant in Merredin. So is this site something that provides an expanded universe of information related to this query? Does it provide a background on Chinese cuisine? Does it provide a background on the fact that sweet and sour pork is not actually Chinese, but it's more likely American? Because nobody in China knows what sweet and sour pork is. I'm just totally just taking a guess here. Sweet and sour pork just seems so generic. I'm just guessing it's not actually Chinese. Then we look at the usability of the website. Is the page made for mobile and desktop screens? Does it take a long time to load? Is the content easy to follow on a single page? Can you just get from the top to the bottom and follow it easily without having to click on extra links to go to another page to get more info, because the page has been split up with, a sentence per page? Quite often, those little clickbaity things at the bottom of your local newspaper website. They call them Outbrain and Taboola. They're things that say, like, you wouldn't believe what this 80s rock star looks like now. Those kind of, you probably know those kind of articles, right? So those kind of articles lead you a page where you see a question being asked, and then you got to click next and go to the next thing, and then next. They don't do well for searches on Google. What they do well for is displaying lots of ads around there, and the more those ads are seen, the more they get paid. So they're not caring if you find them on Google at all. They've already got you finding them through the local newspaper, because, you know, the News Limited sites and the 9 Media sites, they tend to put those things down the bottom of the page, and you get hooked in, and next thing you know, you're still trying to see where Tina Yothers from Family Ties looks like today. And is the text easy to read for multiple kinds of people? And this is where we get into what is called accessibility. So if someone with low vision is able to read that page, that's great. So you're looking at things like contrast. So is it a black website with a white writing? Is it a white website with black writing, which is generally concerned about being the most readable? It's the most accessible version. Are you using a font size that is dynamic? So when the screens go up and down, the font size stays appropriate for the message that's being delivered, for the person who's reading it, and for the screen that it's being delivered on. Or is it all in 8-point and it's really, really difficult to see because it's tiny, tiny, tiny writing because someone decided that would look nice? The fact that having that text easy to read, easy to follow, loading quickly, and being made particularly for mobile screens, because most of the internet now is actually accessed by mobiles, not by desktop machines, then that stuff is going to go a long way to giving you those extra points for the usability of your website. And this context of who is searching, wow, this is something which has become so important in the last 10 years, even more vital in the last 5. It's about the settings you have in place for their searches. If you've got a certain lot of settings that you put in, if you're a setting hacker and you tend to go into your Google settings and say, I don't want to see this kind of things, I do want to see those kind of things, remove this history, remove this. If you're taking a lot of information away from Google about you, then your search results are going to be less good. They're going to be less relevant. They're going to be less contextual, because that contextual information that Google knows about you, it needs that information to be able to give you really good search results. But if you're privacy oriented and you don't want that information, you're still going to get a good result from Google. It's just not going to be quite as good as it would be if they had that information on you. Now, it'll also ask a question such as, where does this person normally find their answers when they're typing this into Google? Do they normally find them on TripAdvisor? Do they normally find them on this obscure subreddit on Reddit where, you know, they tend to go and they trust that? Do they find it from the Breitbart newspaper site, or do they find it from the Guardian newspaper site? Are they a Huffington Post reader? Are they someone who reads news? Or are they someone who tends to get their answers from Pinterest, where they'll see, you know, the ideas they're looking for pinned on a board graphically? And then, where are you geographically located? Like I said before, if I'm looking for a restaurant in Merredin, I don't want to see results for a restaurant in Darwin. So that geographical location is highly, highly important, because it provides more of that context of who you are and what you're searching for and where you're searching. I may be living in Darwin, but I visit the Gold Coast very often. But I don't want to see Gold Coast oriented search results all the time. I only want to see them when I'm actually on the Gold Coast. So if I get out my phone and I'm sitting there on the Gold Coast and I've only been there for half an hour, and I pull up a search and say, I'm looking for an ice cream place. I'm not saying ice cream place is Gold Coast. I'm just saying, hey, G, find me an ice cream place nearby. Well, it's going, well, I'm not going to find you an ice cream place in the middle of Darwin City. I'm going to find you an ice cream place near where you actually are right now. And what does the search history of the person searching have to tell us about them, or tell Google about them? So if they've got a history of certain patterns, and everybody's got patterns, we are far more predictable than we think we are. Everybody's got patterns about the way they search. Are they people who search late at night? Are they people who search very early in the morning? Have they got this day, which is the same morning tea time every day, the same lunchtime every day? They hop on their phones at exactly 4:21 in the afternoon and start searching for something. They start looking for ideas for dinner, that sort of thing. Well, that search history tells them we know roughly what their context is, we roughly what they're looking for, so we can throw back a much more relevant sort of search result. We're not going to throw them any surprises. We're going to throw them what we know they definitely like. So with all that in mind, that's a whole lot of great stuff, and that's a really good sort of outsider's guide to how Google basically works. But what will it be taking for you to be found on Google? What have you got to do with all this? Well, your site's got to be fast. This is from Google's information itself. As page load time goes from 1 second to 3 seconds, the probability of people bouncing out of that page and not really taking it in increases by 32%. Once you get up to 6 seconds, the probability of people bouncing away from you increases 106%. So you can see how that goes up. It's almost exponential. It's a big, big deal. I would say it is good to be under 5 seconds, but it's even better to be under 2 seconds. It's good to have quality web hosting, but it's even better to have quality web hosting in Australia. It's good to be clean and quite minimal and very nicely designed, but it's even better if you have as fewer images as possible. Don't have no images, because that makes your site like really boring and just basically what the internet was when it first was invented. You can still have images, you just don't have to have 5.3 megabyte images loading every time your page loads. So the way to have a really fast loading website, and quite often these days, this doesn't happen, but it should, is the idea that you build a website for a mobile phone. Because what it does, it's a theory that I call living on a boat. So when you're living in a house, a 5-bedroom house, you will find ways, and I swear you will, you'll find ways to fill every one of those rooms full of crap. You'll find a way to fill every nook and cranny, every wardrobe, every surface will be covered in stuff, because you've got 5 rooms plus a bedroom. That's just the bedrooms. You've got dining rooms, living room, family room. You've got a rumpus room. You've got a hallway, a foyer. You've got plenty of space to fill. But when you live on a boat, and I'm not talking about a huge uber mega yacht, I'm talking about a boat that can pretty much just maybe house 2 people very tightly. You've got no room for all the guff. You've got no room for the stuff. Oh, Mandy, really good point. Mandy just said it's the same as having a big handbag. That's absolutely true. The bigger the handbag, the more junk that you're going to fit into it, and the more sore your shoulder's going to be at the end of the day carrying that thing around. So the idea here is, if you build your website to be on mobile first, so you don't even start looking at, if you're using something like Wix, this is really easy to do. Even WordPress using, say, Divi or Elementor can be quite easy to do that. Well, relatively easy. I say that as someone who builds websites every day, but as someone coming to it, say, for the first time ever, it's not as difficult as it once was to start building your website for a mobile screen. In fact, what it will do is it'll teach you a whole lot of discipline on making sure that everything you're doing is building it for a very fast page load. Because if it has to load up something which goes down like as you're scrolling, those never-ending scroll, eternal scroll pages, every time you do that, every time you have to flick your thumb to go down further and further on a page, that's more stuff that needs to be loaded. That's more stuff slowing down the loading of your page. So those, what they call infinite scroll pages, if you ever come across that, where the whole website is essentially just one big page, they are terrible. On the page speed loading, they are absolutely atrocious, because they're loading every one of those images, every one of those videos, every one of those links, every one of those bits of text are being loaded all at once. And if you're taking that 10 seconds or more, no one's hanging around to wait for you. They rather waste another 15 seconds going back to Google to find another site than wait 15 seconds for your stuff to load. So it's really super important that site is really fast. So that's a few tips in there. So to build for mobile first, be very disciplined on what you put on each page. Don't overcrowd the page with lots of stuff. Like certain, a lot of news sites will do that. They just cram it full of so much stuff, and there's just so much going on that the message is actually being lost. Your site's going to have to be secure, no excuses. This is no longer a nice to have, it's a must have. What an HTTPS shows you, beyond anything else, is on browsers, it will show that your site is secure. If you don't have that, it's going to show your site is not secure. And that sends a very, very broad message to someone to say, I don't care enough about the visitors to my website to prioritize the security of their browsing on the site. And what that means is if you've got a form on your website, so a contact form, people enter in the contact details, they click send and off it goes. They're expecting that the only person that's going to read that at the other end is you. They're not expecting that a hacker could simply put a little bit of code in place that reads that on its way, and they can intercept that information getting through to you. So that HTTPS stops that from happening. It stops that form from being able to be intercepted and then having your details added to someone else's database. So Google at the moment, they say that, look, that they technically don't have to have you as an HTTPS site, but I would say that I have noticed very big differences in the fact that search results improve automatically when you have that HTTPS as opposed to HTTP. This is something which you either do from your web host. So some of the better web hosts like SiteGround, Ventura IP, they will offer a free, what they call an SSL certificate, so secure socket layer. What that means is your site is then transferring its data between the browser and then you securely. If your web host doesn't do that, it can be ordered through your domain provider, and your web hosting provider can obviously also sell them. But if they're not giving these away for free these days, I would swap providers, because honestly, you do not have to spend $90 to $150 a year on an SSL certificate when there's perfectly great web hosts that are giving them away for free as a thing called Let's Encrypt. Or you can use something like Cloudflare. This is probably getting a little techie now, but I'm using something like Cloudflare to handle your, what they call a DNS, or your domain name services, and it will then put security on that for you. So, just got a question from Sarah asking, if someone is doing this for me, how do I check that I have HTTPS? Well, you just simply type it in the browser and you say HTTPS : and then type in your domain name. So if it's sarahevans.com, something like that, if it immediately says, it comes back and says that it's not secure on the browser, that's when you know that HTTPS hasn't been done. So it's just one of those things which, if you're having your site built at the moment, you may not be able to see that just yet, because the site hasn't gone live and it hasn't been allocated to a proper full domain. It might be still operating on some subdomain or some building hosting that they're doing. But yeah, that's what will tell you. So your site has to be accessible to Google, which is a bit of a duh. Of course it does. There's a file called a robots.txt file that sits in most web hosting situations. Think of things like Squarespace, Wix, they all have that. So you don't have to worry about that so much. But if you've got your own WordPress or Joomla site or similar ones like Magento or any of those things you have to buy web hosting and do yourself, they will have a robots.txt file built into the systems. But if it doesn't, it's just basically saying to Google, go for gold, index everything in here, including the stuff in my admin settings. It's not a great way to go. What you want, a robots.txt file, is a suggestion file. It tells Google and other search engines what can and cannot be indexed in there. So you may have a sales page that you don't want found on Google. You only want it related to traffic coming through a Facebook ads campaign. So the robots.txt saying that I do not want to see this particular page indexed on Google is a great way of doing it. It can also be done on things like WordPress, where you can tell in the actual article or page, in the post of the page, that you don't want that particular thing to be indexed. So it's a no index, no follow, which means Google, don't index this, and please don't follow any of the links on this page, because the things that it's linking to, I also don't want them necessarily indexed as well. That Google Search Console that I mentioned earlier is all about it's your console to Google, basically. It's how Google communicates with you through their algorithm, what is right and what is wrong with your website. So if it's telling us that there's a problem with one of these pages on your website when it comes to people on mobile phones, then it will tell you. It will let you know that people are experiencing slow page loads. It'll let you know that there's an item on that page, say an image, that's been scaled too wide for the web page to show correctly on a mobile phone. So this Google Search Console, for a lot of people who own their own website, they may not know about this. It's not 100% necessary to have it, but it's absolutely awesome to have it. If you know what you're doing, and if you're working with a web designer, they will have this set up. If they haven't, they probably should, because this is their way of knowing what things are that they need to fix, even as they're developing the website. Oh, it's got such a scratchy throat today. Having good code is massively important for Google to know where it's going as well. Google knows what different websites are built in, and therefore it also knows how to treat them. So if you're using a content management system or a very well-known web page builder, say for instance Wix, Squarespace, Weebly, let's name WordPress, Joomla, Magento, any of those kind of packages, even Shopify for that matter, they're all known to have good, clean code. They've been developed well. They're developed according to certain standards. Google knows how to read that code and display it in its Google Chrome browser, and therefore it knows how to read through what is actually on that site. That everything is laid out in the way it should be. So for instance, when you write a post on WordPress or an article on Wix, or you have a new article you're writing on Squarespace, you can then know that your title will be correctly coded to say that this is a title. The body text will be correctly coded to say this is body text, and the images will be correctly coded to say this is an image. There's no guesswork that Google has to do. They don't have to fill in the gaps. It just goes, yep, I know what all this is, and I'm going to display it as such. A question from Elizabeth. Yes, you can view this again later. It won't be available to you through Zoom, but it will be available in the next 2 days through Business Station's channel on YouTube. So just search for Business Station. There's a channel called Business Station, and it's on YouTube, and they'll be able to display that there, as well as a whole bunch of the other ones of these that you might have missed. For any of even the ones coming up, if you didn't register for them, you can still see them on that YouTube channel. You also need quality links inside your site and outside your site. So this is the backlinks thing that people sometimes talk about. You might go, oh, what about links? I need all the links coming to my site. Well, you don't just need links coming into your site. That's the inbound links. You also need internal links. You need links from one part of your website to other parts of your website. In most cases, that'll be handled by your menu, but it doesn't hurt to put in a few extra links, such as if you have 2 articles in your website that are related to each other, cross-linking them to each other, saying you can read more about this here at this link. That sort of thing is really valuable, because what it allows Google to do is to follow a logical flow through your website the same way that a person would. So if they're searching for, I'm going to go away from the Chinese food thing just because I'm hungry. If you're searching for people who are reselling Kmart furniture, it's a very, very oddly specific thing to be looking for. For people who are reselling Kmart furniture, it will look for your site that's all about people who resell Kmart furniture, and then it's looking for relevant links that you've put in that page that lets someone continue the journey. So for instance, if it's linking to another page in a website that's talking about people who are reselling Kmart homeware items, then it'll go, okay, that's a logical flow through. I can see how a real person who is searching for reselling Kmart furniture would then want to go, oh yeah, reselling some of the homeware items, that would be good too. Because let's face it, Kmart sometimes runs out of stuff or changes something, and that item won't be available again. And quite often you go to eBay and you'll see them selling it for about 3 times the price. Outbound links are also vitally important, because they give a context of who you are in the world of what it is you do. So for instance, if you are a psychologist or a therapist, like a counselor or a psychologist, or a psychological therapist of some idea, if you're linking through to other people who are psychologists as well in other markets, you don't have to link to your competitors. You can link through to other people in other markets. You can link to educational pieces about what it is you do. You can link to things like Beyond Blue, to the Black Dog Institute, all those different areas that are kind of related to what it is you do. What they show is that you recognize the authority of those sites, which is great for them, but it's also great for you because it shows that you actually do recognize those places as authorities, which helps to link your info, helps lift your authority up a little higher as well. And then those inbound links, of course, they're those ones that we call backlinks. They are so vitally important because they give you that true credibility. They're the ones that say, this site's information is good enough that other people link to it as a source of good information. Now, the backlinking thing has kind of been this thing that you'll often get an email from a bunch of people in a South Asian country who are trying to sell you a service where they can sell you 50 backlinks or 2,000 backlinks and get you on the page 1 of Google. Please do not do that. At the moment, Google's position is they're not necessarily going to penalize you for having lots of backlinks from strange forums everywhere, but they're not going to reward you for it either. So going and spending that money of getting someone to put tons of links over tons of places about who you are and what you do, whilst it won't necessarily be penalized, it will not be rewarded and you will be wasting your money. It's not going to help your SEO out at all. Your search engine optimization will not be helped by that. What will be helped by it is authentic links from authentic places. So you're talking about links from people who are known for what you do. So for instance, if it is your professor in the university and they link to you as a former student who's being successful, that's great. You really want that. That carries a great deal of authority. A link from a government body with a .gov.au at the end of their domain also is an amazing thing to have, because then it allows you to be shown that an official capacity, an official authority is also rating you highly and is not just recommending you, but actually linking through to you so that people who are searching on their website can find you. In the same way, edu.au links are just as great. So it's often was sort of said that a .gov.au link through to you is worth 1,000 other links. Whilst that may or may not be true, it does show a certain level of authority, and those inbound links are going to be much more highly regarded than ones that are placed on forums like Quora or Reddit or places like that. So that talks about then authority and credibility outside of the linking factor. This is where, for instance, you have a strong brand where people are searching not just for what you do, but they are actually searching for you specifically. They're not just searching for a physiotherapist. They're looking for Mary Skewthorpe, who is a physiotherapist in Brisbane. I just made that name up, but they're looking for her specifically. They're not just looking for a lawyer in the Logan area. They're looking for Logan Law. I don't even know if they exist anymore. But if they're looking for a brand, then it's very highly likely they are actually looking for you. So if they're looking for your name, they're looking for you. If they're looking for your brand name or your shop name or your business name, they're looking for you. So having a strong recognition of that, of people going to search for you, not just what you do, is vitally important, especially when it comes to voice search. When people are going, hey G, can you find me a Chinese restaurant? You want them finding your Chinese restaurant, or you want them saying, hey G, can you call this particular Chinese restaurant, the Happy Garden restaurant? And then you're getting that direct referral through to either a phone call, a web page, anything like that. That strength of your brand is so, so important. Gary Vaynerchuk's right. Every other branding expert is kind of right. In the future, when we search for a category of things, we're looking for a plumber. We're going to be given not just the good search results, we're going to give them mostly the paid search results. So making sure that someone is searching for Nightcliff Plumbing and Gas rather than looking for a plumber in Darwin, that's what you really want to have, which means you're going to have to be well known. For those of us like to hide in the shadows and lurk a bit and we don't really want people knowing anything about us, well, business in the future is probably not going to be for you. You need to work on that being known, people knowing who you are and knowing what you're known for, which means being well regarded. So this is where it comes down to all those sort of offline activities like networking, like working on your LinkedIn profile, like working on your communication skills, doing workshops, doing seminars, meeting people, letting people know who you are and making it very clear, doing Facebook Lives, all those things that help people to feel good about you and to know who you are and to be able to search for you when they're looking for what it is you do. Those are all things that are going to give you a massive, massive boost on Google. Mobile optimization, probably about 5 years ago, this became critical. About 3 years ago, this became compulsory. If you do not have a site that's fast to load, has a simple layout and fits on a mobile screen correctly, you will not even appear in the search results on a mobile phone for what it is you do. It just won't happen. You'll be scrubbed from the mobile search results on Google straight away. You will be found on the desktop search results. It won't affect you there. But if you're not found on mobile search results, and that represents 60 to 80% of all searches going on for what it is you do, then you're also going to be penalized on the desktop because you're getting less traffic because everyone else is getting it who has done the work to make their sites mobile optimized. So it's absolutely vital you do this. These days, every web builder does this, whether it's Divi on WordPress, Elementor on WordPress, if it's a general WordPress theme, if it's a Wix site, a Squarespace site, a Weebly site, a Joomla site, a Magento shop, a WooCommerce shop, or even a Shopify shop, they all are built to be mobile oriented. So they'll either load as in a responsive layout, which means that as the screen gets smaller, it squishes down and stacks the content, or it's adaptive, which says when I get to this particular point, it changes the layout to something else. Or if it gets to this particular point, it changes the layout yet again. That is just a must have. You cannot not have that now. Otherwise, you know, I'm seeing it now with people who used to rank so highly 5 years ago, and they haven't done the work to make their site mobile optimized. And it's now, they've pretty much completely been obliterated in their search results. And then there's this SEO stuff. Now, SEO is a great big beast. It's a rabbit hole of all sorts of trouble and strife. There's schmucks around who want to take your money for it. There's people who want to show you how to do it. There's as many opinions about SEO as there are people who work in SEO. Everyone's got an opinion on it. When it really comes down to it, it's all about how you do your pages and how your technical setup is. So if your on-page SEO involves making sure your headlines are relevant to what you want to be found for, making sure your images are relevant to what you want to be found for and are marked as such using what is called alt text, making sure that the words you want to be found for, the words that people type into Google, that those words are present on your page is absolutely vital. Whilst keywords and headlines are becoming less relevant according to the whole thing of context and intent, they are still important enough that you'll need to have them in place. And a place where you can check out your technical status and even a little bit of competitor analysis if you want to compare yourself with your best competitors. You can go to SEOsitecheckup.com. That's one of about 5 different tools I use, but that one's actually pretty simple. It produces a report that will show you all the things that are technically wrong with your site from a Google search perspective and give you a whole bunch of tips on how you can make it better. It'll look at things like you got too many headlines or too few headlines, your images are too big, your page is loading too slow. It'll tell you what those things are and then give you hints at how to fix them. You may not know how to fix all those because you probably didn't build the site. And if you didn't, that's okay. You can hand this to someone who can update those things for you. And then finally, the social signals. This is where there is chatter about you. So Google knows what's going on Facebook. It's not necessarily reading and indexing everything that's going on Facebook, but it will read enough to know that you have a presence on Facebook. It'll read enough to know that you have a presence on LinkedIn, a presence on Twitter. Tweets can be read by Facebook. Facebook posts generally aren't, but they can be. So you can probably rely more on the fact that making sure that you are present and active on social media. That chatter about you adds to the noise around what you do and the noise about who you are. And that noise helps create you as a more credible presence on the internet and as a more prolific presence. So there's more about you out there. There's more talk about you out there. SEOsitecheckup.com. Let me have a look at, might want to check the spelling on that. SEO, S-I-T-E. Just quickly checking that out now. Yep, it's there. I'll just quickly copy that in so you can just click on it and go to it straight away. Go back to my presentation, which I just took away from you. And we're back. So those social signals are really important. You'll tend to find that it's kind of a race between Facebook and LinkedIn as to what is the higher ranking of things that are in there. But if you can make sure that your identity, your business name, everything that you want to be known as is matched up between your different social places. So Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, and Pinterest, and Instagram, and your website, and your Google My Business have all got the same kind of company name on there or brand name, then it makes it so much easier to find you. So you've got lots of those references all coming in, which of course, maybe forget about this completely, is Google My Business. Now, Google My Business is absolutely vital to be on there. And I kind of keep brushing that aside because it is so obvious to me that it should be something you do, but I just realized that not everyone has that. Google My Business is that panel that comes up on the right when people search for who you are, or they search for what you do. And in some cases, you may be the only person in town that does that. And so a panel of information on a desktop comes up on the side about the person who best matches that. You want to make sure you're in there with all the relevant information about your business, tons of photos, as much video as you can put in there. Basically, treat Google My Business like Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter. Put information in there all the time. When you're updating Facebook, update your Google My Business because you can actually post into that. And there is, I believe, an excellent Google My Business webinar coming up shortly with one of these ASBAS things. So it's like really, really good to be able to get that under your belt and know what it is. But think of it this way, the more information you give to Google about you through your Google My Business profile, the more it knows about you and the better it can match things. It's James is saying it's so obscure. I had no idea it was this social media, but it's right there in your face. And that's absolutely true. It is right there, right in front of you. It is it's so obvious. It's kind of silly that it should be a place where you put that information. But more and more, we're starting to look at examples of where people have put in posts. You can put in specials. You can put in deals and offers and events even in there, just like you can do on any of the social media. So when Google Plus sort of went away because it was just a hive of iniquity, it became rolled into a thing called Google My Business. And that was your option to be able to provide lots and lots of input to Google about who you are and what you do. I really thoroughly recommend you doing it because my own business, okay, looks like James had a bit of trouble with SEO site checkup, but we can look at that at the end. We want to make sure that there's as many points of data that are coming through to you by anything like that. You want to make sure that that people are getting as much information from you through Google as absolutely possible. So as a quick recap, be fast and accessible. Make sure Google can read you and that your pages load super fast. Be relevant and have great content. That should be a no-brainer, but it would be really, really surprised at how people don't understand what may be relevant. Just think about what would family and friends search for if they were looking for what you do. Not if they're looking for you, but if they're looking for what you do. And work outside of Google on your credibility, how people know you, whether you're well known, your brand, things like that, whether people will look for you directly. That's a way of really shortcutting your way around it. I've got a few resources here I'm going to let you take a screenshot of if you like. This will be available in the video as well. Some things that will help you to discover, how to build out keywords, how to, and these guys have got tons of blogs as well, which you can read through if you want to learn more about the search engine optimization side of what we're talking about here, about how to get the right content in place, the right named content, the relevant content that we're talking about putting on the sites. So those ones are great. The keyword tool, I think, is just exceptional. But for the retailers and those who are selling retail online, Store Growers is remarkable as well. It's really a standout for those who are looking to work out how to place keywords in to their products and their items on a website. It's going to open up the floor to a few questions at the moment. I know James is asking about not being able to see his website. James, you can just copy in your website address if that's possible. If you feel comfortable doing that, to the chat window, and I'll see if I can run that in the screen now that I'm not sharing. I've got my little zooms over my eyes again. That's strange. So migrationbridge.com.au. I'm just going to whack that into my browser. Just 1 second. And into SEO site check. So that seems to be loading for us. Yep, it's loading for me now. So I'll just quickly share my screen again so you can see that. So it might just be something to do with if you've got like ad blockers and things on your website, on your browser, that may be an issue. But if you're not too scared for me to show what your, there you go, it's showing you there on screen. So it's giving me the score is for your one. So yeah, have a go at that. Try it with maybe a different browser and that should come through. Wix websites usually don't have any problem. Good to see though, James, you've got an HTTPS in there. So well done, mate. You've done well. Has anyone got any other questions about Google, SEO, anything like that? Something that's been burning inside you, a specific scenario where you go, what would I do to get started with my business, which is a X? I'm really quite happy to answer those because we've got about 7 minutes to go before we wrap up. So what does this result mean? So the result in here, so 73 is below what it should be. It should be at least 80% or 75 and above, I believe it is. 75 and above is good. What this result in here, James, would mean is that we need to work on some of it, or you'd need to work on some of these things. So it's saying, for instance, that the keywords that are found in your site, like these here, are not showing in the meta tags in your site. So in your titles of your site and the description of your site are not showing the keywords quite enough. It'll tell us things such as, you know, some of your on-page stuff is excellent, so you've done really well. Images that don't have the alt attribute, so the images haven't been given a result there. So look, if you're looking for a really good result, 80 up is good. 90 up is brilliant. If you can get 90 up, I've got my own site up to 96 recently and a couple of clients up to 92 and 97. 97 is the best I ever got. And then we got an air conditioning guy up to 100 and I didn't know how he got it, but it got it there and it was amazing and he's reaping the benefits of it. So it's this is only one site's opinion though. There's others, Ahrefs, SEMrush, Moz, Mangools. There's tons of different people who do this. This is just one of the tools that I use when I'm looking for it. I tend to use 5 different tools because I want to get the average out of those 5 and see where they agree with each other or disagree. G is looking at doing ads on Facebook and Google for small and medium businesses. Any suggestions are welcome. Probably a bit out of the context of this particular webinar, but I would say this, that think about advertising on Facebook and Google as being at different stages of the customer journey. If someone doesn't know anything about you and is likely doesn't even know that they need what it is you do, then Facebook is a great place for you to advertise to make people aware of what you are doing and where you're coming from and who you are. It's what they call at the top of the funnel. So you imagine a funnel that brings a great big crowd of people at the top down to that few people who drop out the bottom that are your customers. You want to get as many people in the top of that funnel as you possibly can who know who you are and what you do, so that when they're actually going and searching for what you do on Google, that they're either searching for you or they're searching so specifically for what you do that they absolutely find you. And when they see that listing on Google for you, they'll click on it and they go, oh, I've recognized that one. I've seen that on TV. I've saw that on the radio. I've seen that on the Facebook ad. So I'd say concentrate, if people don't know who you are and what you do very well, concentrate on Facebook to begin with. When you start to get some recognition, then you can start coming into the Google thing and paying for some Google ads to make sure that if you don't have all that SEO and you're not showing up very high in Google, that can help you sort of get on top of that. And the more people who come through traffic through Google ads, then also increases your performance on SEO, because traffic is good traffic coming from anywhere. James is saying high scores. What does it do on Google search results, as in ranking when others are also good at SEO? So SEO is a real, SEO is a cat and mouse game. So you'll do something that increases your SEO and gets you above your competitor, and then they'll do something which responds to that and gets it through. Consistency is the best thing ever, and legacy. So the amount of time you've been doing it, it's going to take others a lot longer to catch up with you if you've been doing this for 10 years. But if you stop doing it for 3 months and others continue to do it, they will catch up to you and they'll overtake you. There's always something going on. There's always something you need to be doing in terms of your SEO, your Google rank and your SEO. What you choose to concentrate on, I would say, is create more content on the site in text form and then back it up with other versions of content on social media. So you're always driving traffic in. If you're driving traffic into your website through what you do on Facebook and LinkedIn and ads and all sorts of marketing, and then match that up with really, really good content in there, and it may be hard for you to produce content, then see someone who does content for a living and see what they can get out of it. There's most cases where I've used to do a writing for SEO course, and I would say at the end of the first webinar, I was like, send me what it is your business does, and I'll give you 10 ideas to write a blog right now. And it's really easy to do that because someone who's outside of your business finds your business so much more interesting than what you probably do, because you've been doing it for ages. It's your daily thing. The things that you do don't seem that interesting or that out there to you, but for someone who doesn't do it, it's absolutely fascinating. Mike's asking, how do I discourage competitors finding me and copying my content while attracting customers? I run courses teaching groups of people to write their life story. I'm going back to your comments on the intent of the searcher. Yeah. So the intent of trying to look for you as a competitor, look, Google will know if someone's a competitor to you and they're searching. Whether that intent is to spy on you or not, if they're looking for you, they're going to find you regardless. You're not ever going to discourage someone from finding you. There's so much information out there in the world for what we all do. There's very few of us that have something that is so unique and so original that nobody's ever done it before, that it's going to be really hard for you to stop people from copying what you do or taking some kind of change to it. And the idea would be even companies as big as Snapchat and Facebook copy each other blatantly. Instagram copied Snapchat stories and then took it to a new level. And, can Snapchat really do much about that? Well, not really, because they invoke the wrath of a huge, huge company. So copyright is one of those things where the information you're delivering is probably not as important as the way you're delivering it and your own personal touch to it. People, by and large, make either a decision based on price or a decision based on an emotional connection to you. So if someone's got something that's exactly the same as yours and it's the same price as yours, the same material as yours, what you do in that top of funnel thing where you're actually getting people interested in you, getting that reputation, getting that authority, getting that credibility, that's what's going to get them to choose you, regardless of whether your competitors have chosen what you're doing. It's going to be a really, really hard one. And if you're really, it sounds like a real platitude to say, stop looking behind you and keep looking ahead. Think of this way, that you'll never ever end doing your content. There's always going to be new content you need to do and new information you need to get out there. People are going to copy, people are going to improvise, people are going to steal your content. It's never going to stop. That's the unfortunate part of the internet. A whole music industry was destroyed by it. So just keep going harder, better, faster, stronger, being better than they are. You've already got the head start on them now. So capitalize on that by making sure that you're well known for what you do, not just that you just happen to be good at what you do. Jane says, so it's good to get third party involved to improve SEO cornerstones, whether tech or content. I would say the tech side, if you don't know what you're doing on a web server, you don't know what you're doing with web hosting, that tech is probably something you're going to have to hand over to other people. For the content and on-page stuff, look, do what you can yourself, depending on the size of your business. If you are a $1.5 million a year business, you're probably at the point where you can start outsourcing a few things. If you're at I haven't even made my first $75,000 a year yet, well, then this is something you really probably should look at yourself. Do the free courses, use ASBAS people to be able to do that as well. Try and get everything you can for as cheap as you can while you're small. But remember that these things are an investment. At some point, you're going to come across that time versus money crossroad, and you're going to go, do I go left and spend more time on this that I don't necessarily have, or do I go to the right and I pay someone to do it? There's risks on both sides, because you can't know everything about the internet. I can't know everything about the internet. I know a lot about it, but I can't know everything. At the same time, it's not like I write every piece of content for my own website. Sometimes I get my other staff to do it. People around me to do it, other experts that I work with to do that as well, to make sure that we're getting, a good variety of stuff in there. Sarah is just saying, when you talk about adding content, I'm guessing that means, does that mean the actual website as a social media account towards that? Yeah, so that's the actual website. Your social media content is not necessarily going to drive you a lot of SEO nous. It may drive you extra traffic through to your website, but it's not necessarily going to help you be found in Google. That's going to take actual stuff on your website. So if you've been kind of sort of getting away with having a website that doesn't have a blog or doesn't have articles or have extra pages, that's probably going to last you so long. You're going to have to start probably making some moves on making some of that content available on your website. At the moment, written's good. Audio is actually surprisingly good as well. So if you do a podcast, that's a whole other kettle of fish. Or you've got video content on your website, even if it's just backing up video content on YouTube that is connected to your website or linked through to your website from your profile on YouTube or your channel on YouTube. That can be a really good way of adding a little bit more credibility back there too. YouTube is this great unknown, but it's the second biggest search engine on the planet. So the more you can do on YouTube, the better you'll be able to get stuff through Google to your website. James asking too, that's probably the last one I'll have to do because we have to wrap up. Can audio or video content be identified by Google? Audio absolutely can, and video absolutely can. It can be identified and really help you out. So one of the things that Google provides for audio and video is that it can transcribe your stuff. So it will know what's in there. What's currently in testing at Google and be released probably as early as July this year is the ability to search through the transcripts of podcasts and audio content and see those as Google results coming up. Whether that's, and it'll be not only, transcribing the text from what you've said in your video or in your audio, and then we'll pull out that particular area. So if it's a search result that can't be found easily by just text on a page, it'll pull out that expert's comment, whether it's from a professor or an expert in some field. It'll pull out a comment from the podcast, actually mark where it is and say, you'll find the answer to your question in this piece of audio. And it'll then give you the option to listen to that through Google Podcasts, which is also available on the web, not just on Android phones, to be able to listen to that particular, and it takes you straight to it. So, so it has to be visual, actual text. No, this is just spoken text. So spoken word. It'll pick up the spoken word that's coming through podcasts and through videos. It's going to be an amazing change when it happens. So yeah, if you can get onto that, it's becoming more and more important every day to start getting on the video and audio bandwagon. It's actually had a limited release in Google in the US and Canada, like for the last couple of months. So it hasn't been switched off. It looks like it's something which is going to happen, but let's just say that everything gets here about 3, 4, 5, 6 months later than what it gets elsewhere. They just want to make sure it actually works over there. And it's for a limited amount of areas, people who do have podcasts that are listed through Google's podcasts. So you can make sure that they are indexing your podcast episodes, or it's on YouTube. And YouTube will be a very, very, very important factor. So I would absolutely be putting things, don't ignore YouTube. Don't just put things on Instagram and Facebook, put them on YouTube. That thing is about to become super, super hyper relevant for search. That is going to have to be the end of the night for me. I've got to get on out here. But yeah, talking video on phone and posting on YouTube. Yeah, the talking video, anything that's got you talking in a language that Google can understand and translate and transcribe, that will be all be able to be indexed on Google very, very, very shortly. We're talking this year. All right, guys, thank you so much for dropping in. It's so good to have so many people joining us. This will be available, as I've said, on Business Station's YouTube page. So it's youtube.com, and then just search for Business Station. You'll be able to find the channel there. It'll be about 2 days they take about to get those up. You can get onto some of my other ones in there and some of the other ones that other people are doing as well. Some really good general business webinars coming out this month. So make sure you do look those up. Thank you again, and I will catch you on the next webinar that I'm doing. I think it's in 2 days' time. No rest for the wicked, eh? See ya.